Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. Welcome to our last class of Sanskrit Series 2, Organic Sanskrit Series 2. It's great to see you all. And I am still at Diamond Mountain, as you can tell from my beautiful background. May we have the next slide, please? So last week, we were here at Diamond Mountain and we were having the event, The New Beginning, with Geshe Michael. And suddenly this photograph appeared in my Telegram chat. Next slide, please. Yes. So this is a picture of a sandy path at Diamond Mountain. If you look very closely, do you see anything written in that sand? Can anybody see anything? Be brave, talk to me, open your mics, or somebody put something in that. What do you see?
Vowels.
Yes, what kind of vowels? English, Russian, Ukrainian?
Devanagari. Devanagari.
Devanagari vowels, yes. So here we were at Diamond Mountain in an event that had nothing to do with Sanskrit. And there were Sanskrit vowels written in the sand on the path. It looks like sunrise right here. So I think that's extra special and wonderful. I'm guessing, well, I actually know, there were some Sanskrit students, our group, not this group, some of them, different groups, who were present at Diamond Mountain, and they decided to practice writing vowels in the sand. So I think that's great. Next slide, please. Oh, I just said that. One more slide. Thank you. Nope, I think that is, oh yeah. I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused this morning. Go back to the previous slide, which I already said. One back one. Yes, ignore this and let's just recite the vowel song in honor of the vowels in the sand at Diamond Mountain. Okay, on the count of 3, along with me. 1, 2, 3.
I, R,
R,
lir, ler,
A,
I,
O,
ow, aha.
Perfect. Now the consonant song. On the count of 3, along with me. 1, 2, 3. Ka,
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 ga,
ka, na,
na,
tra,
cha,
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 ja,
cha,
ja,
na,
na,
ta,
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 cha,
da,
ga, da,
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 na,
na,
ta,
da,
ta,
ta,
da,
da,
ta,
da,
na,
na,
pa,
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 ba,
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 pa,
ma.
ma.
Great. Okay. Now, what are the 8 consonants that are missing from the vowel song? And you see them here. Tell me about them.
Yarlava.
Yara, lava. And what do we call those? Are those aspirated or unaspirated, or what are they?
Semivowel.
Semivowels.
Exactly. So the column to the left of them is called nasals because they have a very nasal sound. And the ones in the middle at that end piece are ya, ra, la, fa, and they are semivowels. And what do we call, no, go back one. Yeah, stay there. What do we call the last column?
Syllabants.
Sibilants.
Syllabant.
Sibilant. Sibilant, like hissing sounds. Shra, sha, sa. And that funny orphan consonant there, ha, that nobody knows what to call. So we'll call it a sibilant, although obviously it is not. Okay, great. Next slide. Here's another bit of important review. And let's recite the declensions all together, and we'll pay special attention to those visargas, which have a breath sound along with the vowel that precedes them. So we'll start with the nominative and we'll recite on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yoga.
Yoga. Yogao. Yoga. Yogam. Yogeo. Yogan. Yogena. Yogapyam. Yogaya. Yogaya. Yogapyam. Yogepya. Yogat. Yogapyam. Yogepya. Yogasya. Yogayo. Yoganam. Yoge. Yogayo.
That's
Yogeshu.
Up a minute on the locative dual. Locative dual is yoga yoho.
Yoga yoho.
Yoga yoho.
Yoho.
Okay, good. Now we'll go locative plural.
Yoga. Yogao. Yoga.
Someone who's all the way at the end. Perfect. That is the declension of yoga. And as you know, this is how we will decline all of the very, very many masculine nouns in Sanskrit of the group ending in short A, like that top line above the chart, yoga, which doesn't really appear in the chart unless you count the vocative singular. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, here's a verse that is now very familiar to us. So let's recite this together. On the count of 3, we'll do the first line. And I would recommend looking at the I asked, although if you can follow along, looking at the Devanagari, that would be great. 1, 2, 3. Tata maya
Karyam. Svakulochta. Karinam.
And I just noticed an error. Someone pointed out weeks ago that tata, look at the Devanagari, has a long A at the end. You see that? Look at that first word, ta, and then there's an aspirated fourth varga T with a long A, and it's missing in the I asked because wherever I copied it from had that error. And even though I corrected it in many slides, I keep copying and pasting this one and it's not correct. But we said it right. Great. Now let's do the second line of this verse on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Nirmalasya kulasyasya karinko nabhavet yatha.
Nirmalasya kulasyasya kalanko nabaved yata. One more time.
Nirmalalasya
Kulasya
Yasya Kalanko Nabave
yata.
Yatha.
See the rhythm? When you pay attention to the longs and shorts, the rhythm really becomes very particular to that very verse. Let's have the next slide. Okay, there is the wonderful Nirmalasya that we discovered. And let's go to the next slide. I think, is there one missing or did I skip that? Maybe not. Okay. So in Kulasyasya, we talked about that long A because if we look at our chart of the declension of yoga, we don't see the genitive singular having a long A, right? And I think we went over this briefly last week, but let's break that word up. So kula is this nice word that means family in Sanskrit, and it often has the meaning of family of the Buddhas in our tradition. But if we make it genitive, it's just kulasya, right? If you have your charts of the declension of yoga, and this is why the index card I'm urging you to create comes in very handy. You just quickly look at your card and you say, oh, the genitive singular does not have a long A. So in kulasya, there's no long A, but there is, yeah, that's good. There is a long A in the second part of that noun, which is declined in the genitive singular. But if it is genitive singular, it shouldn't have a long A, right? It should be asya. But here it's asya. And as I mentioned, the reason for this is that we added the genitive ending asya to the word kulasya, which is already declined. And when we put those two A's together, we can't have kulasya asya with two short A's. They combine and they become one long So kulasasya is still a genitive, but because it's a double genitive, it has a long A. And this, when the two short A's combine into one long A and is written that way in the verse, is a simple example of sandhi. Two A's together equal a long A. And that is true for any two A's in any words where the first word ends in an A and the second word begins with an A. If you have one word ending with a short and the next word beginning with a short they combine into one long If you have the first word ending in a long and the second word ending in a short they still combine into one long And the same if you have two long vowels together. So one word would end with a long and the next word would begin with a long they still combine into one long So our example here is something declined in the genitive case, but that rule of sandhi with short applies to everything, not just words in the genitive case. That's merely our example here because it came up in our text and we are doing organic Sanskrit. So whatever comes up in the text is what we cover. Okay, so that's a new example of Sandhi. And it's a complicated example because you don't find this kind of double genitive very often. Does anyone remember what we said it meant, how we might translate it? Kulasya, how would you translate that? Knowing that kula means family and knowing it's in the genitive case, which implies some kind of session. Anyone want to take a guess? Translating kulasya. No, you're not feeling brave today. Yeah, Andreas? Say again.
Kulasya, and then the additional asya we said is belonging to the state of belonging.
Exactly. That's an answer to my next question. Beautiful. So kulasya might mean of the family or of a family, but kulasasya would mean of the condition of belonging to a family. So it's a complex grammatical structure. Let's have the next slide, please. Okay. So thinking about what we just went over, what's wrong with the title of this book in this creation, this line? We just talked about what you do when two are combined.
Charya and avatara are two A's, there's Sandhi missing.
Yeah, you can't really have charya avatara as two separate words because with the rule of Sandhi we just explained, those two A's have to combine into one long A. And so it really should say Charyavatara, right? And this is just one of the challenges when you start taking Sanskrit apart and putting it into English or Ukrainian or Vietnamese. You can't really separate the words into separate words each time because of Sandhi. Sandhi changes not only the way we hear and say words, it changes the way we write them. So it's a very big challenge. And there are some systems for doing it. But in this case, if we were writing this English title in IAST, more properly, we should say Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So it should be two words. Bodhisattva we can separate because it ends with an A and the next word begins with the consonant. But Charyavatara, we can't really separate, even though those are two words. In this title, Bodhisattva means bodhisattva, a person who has dedicated their life to becoming totally enlightened for the sake of all beings. Charya is a word that means a leader or a guide or a teacher. And avatara means crossing down into. So they are three separate words, but in proper IAST, they would only be written as two words. So that's an interesting challenge. Okay, any questions on that?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Charya, there is missing an H, Ch, or why
Oh,
there's only a C?
very good. Good question. When we transliterate Devanagari into Ayast, the first consonant in the second Varga, what is that, Kathy? You remember, I know. Second Varga, first letter.
Cha.
Cha.
Yeah.
We don't put an H on it because it's not aspirated. It's the hard, unaspirated version. What's the second letter in the second Varga?
Cha.
Cha. Right. Now that one we would write with an H. Ach. How do you say it in German? Belgian. I don't know. So this is the first letter in the second Varga, cha. So it doesn't have a C, an H. The second letter, which is aspirated, thank you, that's perfect. The second letter in the second Varga is aspirated and it has a H. But to be most accurate, so when you are reading the Ayast, you know which Devanagari you're writing. We don't put an H with a regular second Varga, hard, unaspirated letter. Does that seem right? Clear?
All right.
Okay, great, good question. Okay,
Yeah.
another one, yeah.
Sometimes in the titles there is an H.
Okay, another good question. This title here is Good Ayast. It has the diacritical mark, at least in the second case, over tara, because that's has a long And we just noted there is sort of an error because it should say charyavatara. But in something we call everyday Sanskrit transliteration, we remove all of the diacriticals and we add pronunciation letters so that people who are not studying Sanskrit can more easily pronounce them slightly correctly.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
So in many book titles or everyday discussions of this title, you will see Bodhisattva Charya, and you will see Charya and Avatara separated, and you will not see a long mark over that Tara. So if I was just speaking American, I could say Bodhisattva Charyavatara. But for a Sanskrit student, no diacriticals mean you don't really know what the Devanagari is. You don't really know what the correct Sanskrit is if you don't have Ayast with all the correct diacriticals. For instance, you would see a CH and you would think it was the second letter in the second Varga, and you would be wrong. But because it's easier to pronounce it that way for everyday speakers, they put it in to the non-Ayast versions. So you need to pay attention to whether you're seeing proper Ayast or you're just seeing, may I say, a sloppy transliteration of sort of how it sounds to the ear that does not study Sanskrit. So you will become super critical now. When you see transliteration with no Ayast, you will be upset because you won't really know how to pronounce it. They don't mark it. Okay, let's have the next slide.
Sorry, Christina.
Yes.
In the previous slide, you said that it should be 2 words in the Ayast. Could it be 1 word in the Ayast?
Yes, absolutely. A real version of Ayast would have everything run together in one line. But if you break the words properly, bodhisattva and charya can be broken into two words without losing any important diacritical linguistic information. But charya and avatara cannot be broken into two words without losing important diacritical and linguistic information. When we do our verses, and we're studying chapter 3, 25, and 26, we have broken the ayast up in most cases because it's so much easier when you're learning Sanskrit to try to go word by word. But in a real version, you would probably see it all written in one string. To be honest, in my studies, grammar books and the editions of text that we tend to study do break words up. It's a lot easier, but truly authentic transliteration would probably be written in one long string. Okay, next slide, unless there are more questions.
Yes, Christina, you said that Charya translates like leader, teacher. I hear that word was like Acharya with A. Is this correct or no?
Yes, they're both correct. Acharya is a teacher. Acharya is more of a leader. And it comes from the same root, char. And that is a root, a Sanskrit root, not an Indo-European root. Char is a Sanskrit root. I think it's charoti. That means go. It can mean lead. The Latin is, I forget my Latin, but it's dux, ducati, I think. And it really means to lead out, to go in a way that pulls out. So it's used for a teacher or teaching metaphors, because an educator is one who leads out, right? They elicit the information from the student if they're a good teacher. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's review what Sandhi is, because if we have time today, I really want to do some more Sandhi. So it's sam, which means with, and de. And de, here's the root. It means to hold, to have, or to possess. It's the root of a number of words that mean container or, receptacle, pot, pitcher. So if we put sandhi together, what should we get? Because we know that's of anusvara in some, because we see the dot under it, right? So what happens to anusvara when it's followed by a consonant? Does anyone remember?
It changes
Follows
according to that consonant.
Yes. And
to
what?
the varga of that,
To the what?
the varga of that consonant.
To the varga of that consonant, but which letter in the varga of that consonant?
The nasal one, the last one.
The nasal, the last column in our chart of 5 by 5. So what kind of consonant is de?
Dental.
Dental. And just for extra credit, can you say more about what kind of dental?
Aspirated.
Aspirated, because it has that H. And is it hard or soft?
Hard.
Hard, did you say?
Oh.
Voiced.
Voiced. I always get those mixed up because I learned aspirated and unaspirated. But is a soft consonant because the hard ones are t and t, t. It's a fourth word, t and t in that
And
varga.
why don't you call them like voiced and voiceless?
Because I learned aspirated and unaspirated.
It's different classification.
Yes, and I can't remember which is which. My instinct is to say that aspirated is unvoiced, but I'm not sure. I'd have to check it. I don't want to mislead you. It's just fixed in my mind as aspirated and unaspirated.
No, like aspirated and voiced and voiceless, it's different quality.
Yeah, but they're used to refer grammatically to the same qualities we're discussing. I just don't remember which one correlates to unvoiced, whether unaspirated correlates to unvoiced. I'll have to check it.
Yeah, I think they don't correlate.
Well, it's not an extra quality, but I'll look into it and I'll put it in the Telegram chat. Okay, so which kind of nasal are we going to substitute for that anusvara?
The fifth column of the fourth varga, which is na.
The fifth column nasals of the fourth varga, which is the dental consonants, which is na. And there we go. We get Sunday. Look at the title slide of that slide. Sunday is the way this is correctly written. And basically, you might expect in a tradition that doesn't follow ours to see someday. Look in the very last line of this slide. So you might expect to see someday. But even in Devanagari, almost always it's written Sunday. Look at the line above the last line, Sunday. And that's how it's typically written with no anusvara, even in the Sanskrit. So we know it comes from a root de, which means to hold. But it has, when combined with some, it has begun to have a connotation of making peace with. So you can see that if we literally translate it, holding with, and you hold something with yourself, you are in close contact with it, you are at peace with it, you don't find it threatening or upsetting. So it has a sense of making peace with. And then there's another connotation of joining. So Sunday is often translated as joining or connecting. And it also, I find interesting, has another meaning of twilight. So at the time when the day is fading and the evening is arriving and the two are mixing together, we get Sunday. So this is three ways of looking at this word. And I think, was it Yulia earlier asked a question about charya, acharya. There are different connotations to the meaning if you know the root. And translating, is more of an art, in my opinion, than a science. This is not accounting. So we can't say Sunday means join and move on. We have to take into consideration the other meanings historically over time of this word. And if we put together the notion of the root, the meaning of that prefix, the literal meaning of the root and the prefix together, and the different types of words, translations that have become associated with it, we get a much deeper meaning in our minds for what Sunday means. Okay, let's try the next slide. Okay, So if we take it for grammar purposes that it means joining, we already know that mixes of the letter ending one word and beginning another, combine together to make a long in almost in every case. And this tends to be true of the other vowels as well. We also know a kind of sandhi with regard to anusvara, where the quality of that nasal affects the letter before it, the vowel, and the consonant, if it is a consonant, after it. And we have to change it into a different consonant in many cases. So when do you leave an anusvara followed by another consonant as an M? When do you leave it as M?
In the fifth varga.
Yes. If anusvara is followed by a fifth varga consonant, you just leave it as an M because that is the fifth varga nasal. And when do you change it?
In the other four vargas?
If it's followed by a consonant in the other four vargas, you change it. So in many cases, you will change it. All right, let me see. What else? Okay. So the first kind of sandhi we already know is called vowel sandhi because it affects vowels. The second kind of sandhi with M's and N's we call anusvara sandhi because it happens when you see an anusvara. So I think you can guess what's coming. Let's have the next slide. Okay, here's a new kind of sandhi, and we've already seen it. So have a look at this, which you have already seen. Next slide. All right, here's our lovely verse, chapter 3, verse 26. So let's just recite it once together for good luck. And we did it before and we saw the error in tata, so let's say it properly, even though it's incorrect in the ayast. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Tata
Tata
dana
Dana
maya
ya
karyam
karyam
svakolochta
svakolochta karinam
karinam
nirmala
malasya
ya
kulasya
kulasyasya
kalanko
kalanko
nabhavet
nabhavet
yatha.
yatha.
Okay, so let me draw your attention to the second line and the third word in the second line. Can someone read this word to me?
Sorry, which
Kal-
one?
Kalanko,
Say the right longs and shorts.
Oh,
kalanko,
Kalanko. Good. And we're exaggerating as we learn. So that's the third word in the second line. Kalanko. Now, does anyone remember what it means from a long time ago when we did a little vocabulary?
A fault?
fault, yeah.
A fault or a stain? In Buddhism, we like to talk about stains quite a lot. And okay, so, all right, now, thinking of the declension. Oh, we can go to the next slide while we discuss this. Here are some of our vocabularies. So, kalanka, a spot, a stain, a fault, masculine singular. So it's a masculine singular, it's a masculine noun of what type? What is the typical ending that we've been looking at?
Ending in a short A.
Yes, a masculine noun ending in a short kalanka. we have a word in our verse that says kalanko. So if you think of this noun, kalanka, how would you make it into, how would you decline it? How many choices of declension do you have for this word?
24.
Yes, it could be one of 24 forms. Yeah, and this is why I like having our index card with the declension on it, because I could ask you to quickly look at your index card or your chart or your phone or wherever you have the declension of yoga put out for yourself and ask you, which one of those endings is a long O? Look at your charts and tell me.
There is no such an ending.
Right. So what on earth is this word?
Sandy.
It's Sunday. Very good. Okay. You really have no way of guessing. So let's have the next slide. Is that the next slide? Okay, let's go one more. Yeah, next one more. There we go. Yeah, where you just were. Single word at the top. I think it's the next one. Right. Oh, there's a nice Russian comment there. So let's sound out the Devanagari. And this, let me ask you, did everybody get in the chat the download for that lovely Sanskrit font that is preferred, Sanskrit 2003? Did you get that in the chat last time?
I didn't got it.
You didn't get it. Okay, that's what I was afraid of. Because this is Mangal, which isn't proper because look at how that compound consonant is written. I do all my slides in Sanskrit 2003, but if the person who's running the slides doesn't have that, it comes up with this default, which is not nice. Anyway, pretend that n and ka are combined properly into a nice compound consonant. And let's look at what we see here. So we see kala ko, right? So remember that compound consonant. It's a really good looking one, although we don't see that here. That's not the important thing in this word at this moment. If we know it's Sunday, what case do you think it is?
Nominative.
It is nominative, but how do we know that? We will only know that if we study a little Sunday. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So what is Visarga?
It's the echo of the previous vowel.
Yes, with what kind of noise?
Like a guttural H.
Sort of a guttural H. Yeah. Were you going to say more?
No.
No, okay. A guttural H, or grammarians tend to call it a rough breathing. So if we have a nominative singular of kalanka, as we know from looking at our chart, a nominative singular is going to be kalankaha, kalankaha, with a and a visarga, which we transliterate into I asked as an H with a dot under it, right? So the Visarga Sandhi requires Visarga to change depending on what follows the Visarga. So every time you see a Visarga, you need to be suspicious and imagine that it very well might change, but not always. So if we go to the next slide, how many visargas do you see in this chart?
5, I think. Honey,
I think there's more.
Eight.
Eight. Yes. 2 in the nominative, 1 in the instrumental, 1 in the dative, 1 in the ablative, 1 in the genitive, and 1 in the locative, and also 1 in the vocative. So you're going to see a lot of visargas. It's fairly, sorry, excuse me. It's fairly common. And there are visarga sandhi rules for almost all of these vowel and consonant combinations. And we're going to learn one today. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, visarga sandhi, rule 1. If visarga is preceded by a short a and followed by a soft consonant, aha becomes o. What, Andreas, what did you write there? Let me look.
I don't know if it shows correctly on everybody's computer. It is kalanko.
Kalanko. And what was the original form before Visarga Sandhi changed it? Nominative singular.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Kalanka.
Almost.
Kalankaha.
Kalankaha. Yes. What Andreas wrote in the chat is kalanko, which is what we have after we apply rule 1 of Visarga Sandhi. But because it ends in an O, and we don't know what that is, we have to reverse engineer this word to think, now that we know rule 1 of Visarga Sandhi, what is it supposed to be before Visarga Sandhi affects it? And was that Yulia who said kalankaha? Is that you? Who said that?
Me?
Me. I don't see you.
Irina.
Irina. Okay. Irina correctly said kalankaha is what it's supposed to be. So we reverse engineer it. We see an O. We know that if visarga is preceded by a short a, like it is in the nominative singular, kalankaha or yogaha, and it's followed by a soft consonant, because we'll have to go back and check the verse here, it becomes an O. Can we go back to where the verse is listed? Couple of slides, I think. Yeah. So what consonant follows kalanko?
Nasal.
What kind of nasal?
Fourth vargana.
No. Now, all nasals are hard or soft, or what are they?
It's soft.
They're not soft.
They're all soft. The first 2 columns in our chart are 5 by 5, are hard. The last 3 columns are all soft letters. So in this case, kalanko is followed by a soft consonant. So if we go back to where we were in that slide, it's rule 1, Visarga Sandhi, rule 1. Yeah. We see that if Visarga, kalankaha, is preceded by a short a, which it is, and followed by a soft consonant, as in n, becomes o. So that's what you will see, and you will have to remember what this is. Let's look at the next slide. So I just made this nice blank chart for you, solely so you can, no, back one, yeah. Solely so you can remember which ones are hard and which ones are soft. You know which letters go into these boxes because you know that the vargas go down the left side and the hards and softs and aspirateds and unaspirateds and nasals go down the columns. So I didn't need to put the letters. Just remember that the first two columns of that chart you have imprinted in your minds are the hard letters, and the last ones are soft letters. And then when you see a Visarga Sandhi possibility, when you see an O, you will ask yourself, is it followed by a hard letter or a soft letter? And if the Visarga is in Kalanka Na, it's followed by a soft letter, Na, which is the fifth column here, you change the to an O. There's a lot of other rules coming, but this is the first one and one of the most prevalent. Questions? Okay, let's try the next slide. So just to review, our verse says, Kalanko nabavedyata. And we reverse engineered that O because we didn't know what it was. And we see that it's preceded by a short that's that second A in Kalanko. It's a compound consonant, but that is still short. And it's followed by a soft consonant, N. So we're going to change Kalankaha Na to Kalanko Na, because the Sanskrit ear thinks it can't say Kalankaha Na. Sounds funny to it. So they change it to Kalanko Na, which is actually easier to say. So anytime you see an O, become very suspicious if the word ends in an O. Now, as Andreas pointed out earlier, if it's written all in a string, you can't immediately tell if the word ends in O or if it's just in the string. For instance, there are plenty of words that just have O in them. We had one in an earlier verse, which was soda vyape. That's just a regular O in a word. It's not an ending. But you have to, as we move deeper into Sanskrit, you have to figure out in a string of words if one word ends someplace or it's just part of a longer word. And we'll do more of that. It is like an equation in algebra. It's like the most fun and craziest word game you ever learned. But there are pretty much rules for everything. So if you learn the rules as you go along, it will help you figure out what you are seeing. Okay, so yes.
Christina, is
Yes.
it only about endings then, the rules, or?
Well, the Visarga Sandhi rules are generally about endings for nouns. I won't say off the top of my head that that's always true, but because the nouns are declined, as we know, it's all about the different endings and what follows them. So most of them will be about endings, yes.
Right.
And it's also the case that different vowels will have different rules. This is the rule for preceded by short and followed by soft letter. You can imagine that if it's preceded by guna or verdi and followed by a hard letter or something, the rule will be different. So we see that it must be kalankaha, masculine nominative singular for the type of masculine nouns ending in short And so what do we know about this word kalankaha or kalanko? What role is it going to play in our sentence?
If it's a nominative case, so it should be a subject.
Yes. So this is going to be the subject of our phrase. Let's go to the next slide. So I guess we did this. We already did it. And let's try the next one. So knowing that it is the subject of our phrase, and here's our phrase, Nirmalasya kulasyasya kalanko nabavedyata. And what's the subject in English of this phrase?
Stain.
Stain. So we could say the subject here is the stain. Now, if you remember the vocabulary slide from earlier, let's not go there, but what does na mean?
No.
Not, no, negative, negation. And baved is a verb in the optative mood, which means would be. And yata we can translate as which, or we can translate it as. So, and we know the first two words are genitive, and we know what they mean. Does anyone want to take a crack at translating this phrase more gracefully than these three raw meanings? Think about it for 1 minute or so. This is a hard one. So we're starting off with the stain, and then would not be, right? Having to do with the condition of belonging to a pure family. The stain would not be of a pure family. And that is a very raw translation of what we have found out that these words mean. We have a noun, which is a subject, a verb, which here is negated. Then we have a double genitive. And then we have this lovely word yata, which sort of can mean as. So I might suggest that we could roughly translate this phrase as something like the following. As no stain could or would stick to belonging to a pure family. As no stain would adhere to belonging to a pure family. So once you become a son or daughter of the Buddha and you have this new family, which our verses talk about, no stain would stick to you. So we just translated a verse in Sanskrit into English. So I want to congratulate you all. Can we go to the slide that says wrap up? Not that one. There's a couple in there in case we ran out of time. Several more. It says wrap up. Yeah. So this is our last class. And I want to point out that we learned a lot. We worked on verbs a little bit and nouns a lot. We declined nouns. We learned about roots. We know about compound consonants. We have several rules of sandhi. We have a vowel sandhi rule. We have an anusvara sandhi rule. And we have a visarga sandhi rule. And we translated. That's pretty amazing. So I want to congratulate all of you for doing this. And please celebrate. You know a lot. And let's have the last slide. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I would love if each student could write one sentence in the Telegram chat over the next few days or week. Just tell me how you felt about studying this language. Is it easy, hard, confusing, fun, interesting, anything else that you might have felt? Nothing formal, just your feelings. There's no wrong answer. So please remember to rejoice that you are studying Sanskrit. You are spreading the Dharma around the world in this very powerful way. And I thank you. See you in the next class.
And Christina, while you're still here, I do it the first time, but with all love and respect, we, your students, ask you to Organic Sanskrit 3 and ACI Foundation course with Sanskrit. Please stay with us and teach us, please.
I will do my best. Thank you all so much again. And
thank you.
Let's have fun going forward.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now.